What's going on, guys? I'm here for your cricket update. A lot happening in the cricket world. Of course, we've had the Ashes first test and we've had the T20 internationals between West Indies and India. We're going to start with the Ashes. Now, we know England played Australia in the first Ashes test over at Edgbaston. And Edgbaston has been somewhat of a fortress for England in recent years. I say recent years. Australia haven't won there since 2001. That's a long time. Some of you watching this probably weren't even born the last time Australia won there, before the first test. But this game went a completely different direction than most England fans would have even predicted. Obviously, England on the back of a World Cup win, the nation's spirits high. Australia, obviously, we know England played a game against Ireland, a warm-up game, but even though they did come, there were some difficulties coming through it, they won very comfortably in the end. Australia, on the other hand, they had a game against themselves, and one Australian 11 versus another Australian 11, and all the scores were pretty low. From that tour, they were saying that they produced a seamer's wicket, basically to test the batsman. But to Edgbaston, it wasn't very seamer friendly, you have to say, in terms of for the swing bowlers, which is England's strength. I didn't see much grass on the pitch. We know that the conditions were definitely favouring the batsman. It was a very sunny 5 days. But the way England, I would say, gave up the advantage, it was chalk and cheese between, you know, the test performances and the ODI side. But these test performances is something that we've seen from England in the last couple of years, if not longer. You know, either collapsing early at the top of the innings or having a mid-innings wobble during their batting. But I would say where they lost this game was the first innings. They had Australia 128, 2 for 8. And you allowed Steve Smith, and I use that term loosely, Peter Siddle and Nathan Lyon to put on, what, 160 between them? Now, at that moment, 122 for 8, you're looking to bowl outside 450, but definitely for under 200. But England started playing, I would say, very defensive cricket. They kind of resigned themselves to the fact they couldn't get out Steve Smith. So they'll spread the field when he was batting, and then bring the field in for the other two, the other batsman, the batsman at the other end. But that's no way to play Test cricket. And a 5-match series like that, it's not like you've played even 4 tests and you couldn't get him out, and you come with a different tactic in the 5th test. This is the first innings of the Ashes, and you're already resigned to the fact you ain't going to get Steve Smith out. I don't agree with that. They did something very similar, I would say, in the 2nd innings, and both times he got 140. Now, a batsman of his class, when you don't put him under the pressure to get him out early in his innings, or to get him out any time during the innings, all it takes is one ball. But you kind of resign yourself mentally to the fact you're not going to get him out. You psychologically put yourself on the back foot and put him on the front foot. And he made England pay. He made England pay no end. As the first innings, Australia got up to 284. And with Steve Smith with 144, Peter Siddle 44, Nathan Lyon stuck around as it was to allow Steve Smith to make some more runs. But in England, in their first innings, again, they had themselves in a very, very strong position. Century from Rory Burns, who actually batted on every day of the test match from day 1 through to day 5. He made 133, and I think that was an important innings for him, because especially those 1 to 4 positions, excluding Joe Root, we know he moved up to number 3. Those batsmen are under pressure. those positions, 3 out of the top 4, have always been rotating in recent years for England because nobody's been able to cement their position in the top order. But obviously Jason Roy came in for his tests. It's Ash's debut, second test after the Ireland game. And then we had Rory Burns and Denley coming at number 4. So that 133 for Rory Burns, very, very important for him. 50 from Ben Stokes, 37 from Wokes, and 29 from Stuart Broad. But England, they got themselves in a very, very strong position. They were, what, 282 for 4. And in the end, they collapsed to 300 for 8. So they lost 4 wickets for 18 runs. That's the kind of, like, this is the collapse that has plagued England for years and years now. There hasn't been a batsman to say, you know what, let me come in and steady as shit. It's like one goes and they all fall. I think Joe Root coming at number 3 is very, very important because you lose the early wicket as they did, 22 for 1, Jason Roy when he got out. And Joe Root enabled them to kind of bring back some semblance of a recovery. I mean, it's only 1 wicket early, but what was happening, he was coming in at number 4, and by the time he comes in there, 2 down for 30. And then sometimes the next back wicket will go very quickly. So before you know it, Joe Root and, let's say, Ben Stokes is batting at 30 for 3. And that's a position England's been. So I think him coming number 3, first down, and scoring 57, you know, you want him to go on and get a bigger score, a century and plus. But it's very important that he comes in to steady and stop any potential collapse. But that collapse did happen in the middle order. But then England, to their credit, pushed on through Chris Woakes and through Stuart Broad to get themselves a 90 run lead. And at that point, you're thinking advantage England. Yes, you're batting last, but both teams have shown frailties in their batting to say a 90 run lead, we can capitalise on that. If we bowl them out, this is England thinking, if we bowl them out for even 290, you've got 200 to chase. You bowl them out for 250, the game is yours to lose. But England were very uninspiring. Now, I know there were mitigating circumstances. James Anderson injured 4 overs into the first day's play, first innings. So they were playing with 10 men pretty much for the whole game. Moeen Ali, terrible game. He was terrible, both bat and ball. And subsequently, he's now been dropped for the second test. We'll get onto that. But what did shock me, I think surprised a lot of people. I don't know if there's any injury issues here because from what I heard, there was no injury issues. On the 4th day of the tests, Australia's coming out to bat. Chris Woakes doesn't bowl until the second session. You're trying to get wickets. Steve Smith being a key one. Anderson's out, and you don't bowl your second best fast bowler available after Stuart Broad. Literally everyone bowled. Denley, when did he come on? We had Denley, Joe Root. Between them, they bowled 26 overs, and Chris Woakes bowled 13. Now, for me, that looks like, yes, he must have injury issues, but that's not what we've heard. I don't understand that. So Joe Root's captaincy has definitely been caught in question. The selection of Anderson's been caught in brought to question because it's like he didn't, after his injury initially, he hadn't played any warm-up games. Yeah, he bowled in the nets, but he didn't play any warm-up games to test his fitness. But yes, they took the word of an experienced pro, the leading wicket taker of all time. But in the end, that proved very, very critical because they were a bowler down. Now, Again, Steve Smith, 140, and the question England have to ask is, how are we going to get this out? Get him out. 4 matches to go. We need to find a way to bowl to him. And I think it's really a case of getting him out early. Once he's in his stride, unless the ball is doing a lot, so it's swinging and seaming massively, it's very, very difficult. He comes across his thumbs, covers the wicket, and can play either side of the ground. It's very unorthodox, so even then it's hard to bowl to him because the stances that he gets in are very, very different. But it's so effective. His hand-eye coordination is right up there. Allows him to basically play the ball from anywhere and whip it to the deep for singles or boundaries. We also had a century from Matthew Wade and another, well, the lower order contributed again. Tim Payne, the wicketkeeper, James Patterson and Cummins. Now, Patrick Cummins. It got a bit embarrassing for England at the end where every batsman was coming out and England just couldn't seem to kind of get on a roll, get a couple wickets at a time. And in the end, they were, I guess, bowling for the declaration. They weren't risking their premier bowlers, you know, tiring them out because they knew that declaration will be imminent. Australia's gonna, you know, they are scoring the runs regardless of who we bowl. So there's no point burning out Broad and burning out Walls. Kind of resigned themselves to the fact, but they weren't going to win the game. There was always a chance on the last day they could bat to save it out, but based on England's batting in the last few years, I was not convinced they could bat it out. And 487 for 7 was what Australia made in that second innings, declared, and England needing what, 390 to win, if my maths is correct. 390 to win, 390 to win, and they didn't get close. I mean, they were never going to get close. It was a case of, can we bat out to the day in sessions, in parts, get through and, you know, get through this first test into the second test level. And even that, they didn't get close. They were bowled out in 52 overs, or inside the second session before tea. And it was, the writing was on the wall. The writing was on the wall pretty early. When you had Jason Roy charging down the pitch to Nathan Lyon on the last day of a test to hit him for 6 on a day where you need 390 to win, and the aim is to bat out the day, you're charging down the wicket like it's a T20 or super over. That's the kind of batting that people have seen from Jason Roy in the past in ODI cricket, and therefore question whether he's test quality. Now, it doesn't mean he can't hold the bat, but it's the mentality. There's a mentality of test cricket where you have to be prepared to bat long hours. I don't think he's ever bat more than 4 hours on a day. He plays one-day cricket generally, comes in at number 5 for his county. He doesn't usually bat a 4-hour innings, 3 hours max. If I'm correct, actually, he's never even carried his... Has he carried his bat for an ODI game from like 0 to 50? Not if he's chasing. I don't know if he has. But I know he hasn't really gone past the 3-hour mark in the innings. And your opener in Test cricket, you want one of them to do that. Yeah, Burns did it in the first innings, but you can't rely on him for more reasons than one to do that time and time again. Jason Roy needs to learn how to play Test cricket. And that didn't show me anything that England can be excited about in this form of the game. And they pretty much fell like Skittles after that. Nathan Lyon picking up 6, Pat Cummins picking up 4. And that's all she wrote, as they say. England defeated at their fortress, 1-0 down the Ashes. Australia win by 251 runs. And on to Lords. Now, there's been some changes to the England team. I'm going to get onto them in a second. First, I'm going to talk about Australia. They obviously didn't play Mitchell Starc in this game, the first test. I would expect him to start at Lords in the second test. Probably, so you got Peter Siddle, Pat Cummins and James Patterson. Probably I'll drop Peter Siddle. He did well. He did all right. But I'll probably drop Peter Siddle for Mitchell Starc and pretty much go for the rest of the team. I think Lords will be better for bowling than Edgbaston was on this case. I think the slant definitely helps the fast bowlers, and Mitchell Starc is a wicket-taking bowler. Now, the balance of the side is always going to come into question for Australia because they don't have an all-rounder. They've got Mitch Marsh in the squad, but unlike Ben Stokes, he doesn't actually get into the 11. The options for them would be, in terms of if they were to bring in Mitch Marsh, would be is it Tom Head, that's his first name, and Travis Head even, and Matthew Wade. Obviously, Tim Payne's the captain, so he's not going anywhere, even though they've got the wicketkeeper, multiple wicketkeepers in their squad. Khawaja, I think, yeah, I would think he will stay at 3. So between Travis Head and Matthew Wade. Matthew Wade's century, for me, cements his place in the next test. Travis Head got 50 in the second innings. For me, his place ain't secure because I think that all-rounder of Mitch Marsh can be useful. But I think for the second test, I will go with the same 11 minus Peter Siddle for Mitch Starc. In terms of England, well, they've dropped Moeen Ali. Jack Leach is in. They have... Well, Anderson's injured. So Archer is in. And they've brought in... Well, Sam Curran. He's in the squad. What changes will they make? Well, obviously, Archer comes in for Anderson. I think that's a no-brainer. And maybe his pace and his aggressiveness that the rest of the England bowlers don't have, that can trouble Steve Smith in a way he wasn't troubled in the first test. Jack Leach, for me, comes in for Moeen Ali, straight into the team. From his batting against Ireland, you might even argue with the bat and the ball, he'll be more effective. Sam Curran. I would be tempted, especially if Archer wasn't there, which he is, I'll be very tempted to play Sam Curran. Because I think his left arm seam will, if we're just talking about getting out Steve Smith, which I think you can't just focus on because Australia have a number of good batsmen who probably will come good if Steve Smith doesn't. But it gives them something different to think about. A left armer. Australia have that. They've got the left armer in Mitchell Starc. It's just a different angle, swing, and he can bat. He's a very decent batsman lower down the order. So he does add something. But I'll be surprised if Wilkes was dropped for him. But I expect Archer and Leach to come in. Because of those, you might say, enforced changes, the batting order is probably going to remain as it is. But I reiterate what I said before the first test. Ben Foakes should be in that team. Butler is not a test batsman. And he's not a number 5. Your best you're going to get from him is a number 7 wicketkeeper. But I, personally, would have Johnny Bairstow come in at number 5 after Denley. And I will have Foakes with the gloves. Foakes is a better batsman at this level, for in this format of the game, than both Bairstow and Josh Butler. And he's the better wicketkeeper. So for him not being the side for me makes no sense other than reputation. Butler has a reputation built from ODI, limited over cricket. And Bairstow's done, he's done decent in England's shirt to allow him, to be in the 11. But Foakes should be here. And for me, that could be England's undoing. The lack of test quality batsmen with the right mentality for this game. Joe Root's one. I would even argue that in terms of mentality, Rory Burns, Denley, and Ben Stokes have the mentality. Rory Burns and Denley don't have the ability. Ben Stokes definitely does. But Butler and Bairstow, they don't have the technique. And I would argue that especially Butler doesn't have the mentality to bat long innings, to defend everything. Even the one of the wickets that he got out to, he's trying to turn it early in his innings to square and he gets caught a gully. Play with a straight bat. Play yourself in. This is not ODI cricket. But anyway, that's for England to worry about. Second test, Lords. I mean, after that first test, you can't back against Australia. You really can't. I think for me, the key is how Smith deals with Archer. If Smith is able to, I say deal with that, not necessarily get on top of him, but blunt him, not able to get the wicket, Smith's wicket, I think that could be the key to Australia winning this game. I said it will be a draw going into the for the series. I'm not going to change my prediction right now, but I'm going to have to back Australia for the second test. You have to. You win by 250 runs. I can't back that you're going to lose the next game. I can't do that. So I back Australia for that game, but I think that key battle between Archer and Smith will be the turning and deciding point. On West Indies, we had obviously a 3-match T20 series against India, and it went the exact way I was expecting. I hoped that we could put in a performance and possibly lose 2-1. We put in one performance, literally one, where we scored up to 140, but India was still able to chase that down in the last over. But the last two games, the previous games, first game 95 for 9, that was never going to be enough. Second game we were chasing 170. In the end, it was rain reduced. And we got 98 for 4, lost by 22 runs. That was slightly better than the first game, but comprehensive nonetheless for a T20 game. For me, the standout performers during that T20 series would have to be, Pollard. Pollard for me was the best batsman we had. Lewis did not bat well at all. Pooran, I think, did Pooran have one innings that it was decent? I might be even doing a bit. Oh, it was, yeah, Rovman Powell, the game that got washed out. He was batting with Pooran. Pooran was batting rather slow, actually, 19 or 34, which is a bit different to how he usually plays. But Pollard and Powell, for me, were the standout from West Indies' point of view, but it weren't enough. And we go into the ODI series, which is now fully in the Caribbean, because obviously the T20 series, 2 of the games were in Florida and 1 in Guyana. And I don't equally have much hope for us, because India are just a far better side than us. And that's just the sad reality of West Indies cricket at the moment. But, there's always hope. In terms of the ODI squad, we've got John Campbell, Evan Lewis, Shimron Hetmeyer, Nicholas Pooran, Roston Chase, Fabian Allen, Carlos Brathwaite, Kemo Paul, Sheldon Cottrell, O'Shane Thomas, Shea Hope, Jason Holder as the captain, Kemar Roach, and Chris Gale. Chris Gale is this is his last series. He's looking to make his 300th appearance for West Indies, and of course he needs maybe 12 more runs to break the all-time record for West Indies batsmen in ODIs. Obviously, he only made 4 in the first test, which was washed out. Sorry, first ODI which was washed out. 54 for 1. At the time we were. So he's got a few more runs to make, but I'm hoping that at least one of those 3 games he can put on a performance, to take us back in the ages. Something for him to go out with a bang, because the World Cup, which we thought would be his last, wasn't a great end to his career. So hopefully, playing in the Caribbean, he can give something for these fans to remember him by, other than, of course, everything he's done for West Indies cricket. 2 more matches to go. You hope that we can at least win one of those games to take some momentum into the Test series. Once this ODI series is done, we'll get onto the Test series, a squad which actually has been picked, but we will leave that for another time. So that's it, guys, with my cricket roundup. Second ODI actually starts today. Second Test for the Ashes starts on Wednesday. So it's a big week in the cricketing world. Shout out to both Hashim Amla and Dale Steyn, who recently have retired from international cricket. Stalwarts, legends in South Africa cricket. That's a fact. And the game will miss them entirely. I think it's a no-brainer. World-class batsman in his prime, Hashim Amla, and a world-class bowler in Del Stay. And one would only hope that the injury, or you could have hoped that the injuries he had didn't plague him as much as it did, because he could have been one of the leading wicket takers of all time. But a world-class seam bowler nonetheless. And the game will be poorer for it, but South Africa hope that there are batsmen and bowlers out there who can take on the weight that those two carried for their country. That's it from me, guys. I'll see you soon.